Hi guys! I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Excuse the way I look. I spent most of the day at the beach. We took our little one there, our little one that just turned 6. So I'm very much, I have the beach red face and I'm not looking so great. But I wanted to get on camera as opposed to flipping it because everybody always wonders why I don't face the camera. I'm sure people get scrutinized for every little thing they do. So anyway, I wanted to come on and talk to you guys a little bit about, I was thinking about some examples I could use to give you guys as far as cases that I've helped prosecute. And all I can say is the law enforcement, they don't allow for people to get off the hook. They just don't, especially for murder. I used to have people come in. For example, I had a lady come into the office once and she wanted to talk to me about a domestic violence case, and she said it was like to get to the level that I was at, because I worked in the felony division. So to get a domestic violence to the level that I was at, the defendant had to have a history of domestic violence. They had to have at least 3 or 4 priors to get to where I was at. And this man in particular had about 6 prior domestic violence cases against him. So this lady comes in and she calls me into the lobby and she's like, I just want to talk to you about my case. I really want the prosecutor to drop my case. And she said, I love him, and he's this and he's that, and he's really a good man and all this. And I knew the case. So I said to her, so can you just tell me what exactly happened? And I already knew. And she said, well, he strangled me with the phone cord in front of our 2-year-old, and she went on and on about the things that he did to her, which, let's just say, the strangling of the phone cord was just... with the phone cord, it was just the beginning. I mean, this man was not a good man. Not to mention the fact that this was done in front of a 2-year-old child. So, I asked her, I said, why would you want to let him go on this? And she said, well, I love him, and this. The point I'm trying to make is people don't get a free pass. I could give you a million examples. It just doesn't happen, let alone on a murder case. It doesn't happen. So the fact that NK is out there walking free when I would venture to say probably 80% of us believe and know that she was the driving force to this tragedy happening. We know that. Why is she free? Why? It doesn't make sense. I've never seen a plea deal happen that fast in any murder case that I have ever been a part of prosecuting, ever. It happened so fast. There's a reason behind that, guys. There's a reason why this happened the way it did. There is a reason why they allowed her father to be in the interviews. There is a reason why they allowed him to control the interviews. It doesn't happen, is basically what I'm saying. It just doesn't happen. I've been a part of interviews with suspects, potential persons of interest, if you want. She was never a suspect. I know people will jump on that one. But she, you don't, at 30 years old, you're not allowed, and it just blows me away, and that's why I kind of trip over my words, because I'm flabbergasted to this day about them allowing her father in those interviews. Unless you were under the age of 18, as was the case with Nicole Atkinson's son, and she was in the room with him when they spoke with him. Unless you're under the age of 18, you are not permitted to have anybody in the room with you when the police are interrogating or interviewing you, for that matter. It doesn't happen. I would love to know the strings that got pulled to get him in that room, because it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't happen ever. And I've helped put rapists in prison, pedophiles, child abusers, murderers. I've seen it all. I've never ever seen that happen. And I would love to know the backstory there. I would love to know how that came about. I've been part of cases where murderers have been tracked across the country because they ran. I actually had a case where a girl was, she was in her early 20s. Her father of her baby, who I think was almost 3 at the time, he killed her in their apartment, and he dismembered her body and put her in the trunk of her car and left her car in the parking lot there. They tracked him through 3 states. Actually, my best friend was the one who found him at a mall 3 states away and was leaning up against his truck when he came out and basically greeted him with, "Hey, you know, how you doing today?" And he was like, he kind of just stood there for a second and didn't know what to do, but there was nowhere to run, so he knew he was screwed. So he just said, "Hey, what's up?" And that was that. He put the cuffs on him and he took him back. Law enforcement don't let murderers go. There is no statute of limitations on murder. There's a reason for that. Sometimes cases take tens of years to come to a conclusion. There's, like I said, there's a reason why there's no statute of limitations. There is no time limit on how long you can prosecute a murderer. I'm a little bit confused as to how they do things in Colorado. I live across the country, so I don't know. Here, I ran the county grand jury for a couple of years, and we would do a lot of secret indictments because in a lot of cases, you don't want the defendant to know that you're investigating them. You don't want them to know that you're going to take their case to grand jury and you're hoping for an indictment. So actually, when I would type up the list every week for cases that were going to be heard at the grand jury, secret indictments that were upcoming for the grand jury to hear, I wouldn't even put them on the list because the public would have access to that. We don't want the public to have access to that. They wouldn't get a case number until they were indicted at the grand jury. Then we would assign a case number from there. But it's my understanding, somebody had told me that they don't do things like that in Colorado, so I'm going to put a little bit of research into that and figure that out. But the basis of this video is just to say, murderers just don't get free passes. It doesn't happen. They don't get to take their daddy into the interview with them. And like I said before, at the very least, she was a person of interest at that point. I mean, she was the mistress of a man that annihilated his family. She was at least a person of interest. They didn't treat her like a person of interest. They treated her with kid gloves. They let her father say, I mean, and there was a couple instances where her father actually said, no, you know, don't ask her that. You're reaching. And the detective obeyed and stopped his line of questioning. I can't get past that because the Kessingers ran that interview, and it just doesn't happen ever. And I mean, if you watch enough true crime, you know it doesn't happen. You don't even have to be somebody who's worked in the legal field to know that. I have seen all sorts of things, and I've seen cover-ups. It does happen, unfortunately. I said this before, it's not what you know, but who you know. And that is unfortunately the case a lot. But with that being said, why did they not do any digging into her? Why do they know that her phone pinged in Frederick on that morning? And why did they let that go? Why, this whole thing with her not clocking into work, but only clocking out that day. Her phone was pinged in Frederick at 6:16 in the morning. The dogs went crazy underneath those basement steps. It just so happens there were screens from the windows right underneath those steps. I mean, is all of this supposed to be coincidence? Are we all supposed to believe that this is all coincidence? Why didn't they take, they didn't really take much into evidence at the house, if you think about it. There were so many things. Shanann's water bottle was sitting on that nightstand. They left that. They didn't test anything. They didn't do anything. I mean, truthfully, they really didn't. They didn't even treat it like a crime scene. They let, and D.A. Rourke, who we've determined is as shady as they come, he literally got up there and said it was CW and CW alone that acted. And I mean, he really emphasized that point. Why is that, guys? Why did he really emphasize that CW acted alone? Because he didn't. He knows the public isn't stupid, and people like us that actually do have a background in the legal field, we all know there's way more to this. You know, I believe in the system. I do believe in the system, but unfortunately sometimes it fails us. I think I spoke about this before, but I had a case where a little boy was being abused by both of his parents. They were beating him, and he got taken away and he got put in foster care, and everybody's like, oh, thank goodness, you know, we're going to take care of this boy. And then, you know, the foster parents beat him to death. I'll never forget the pictures of his little tiny 7-year-old body on a morgue table. I'll never forget it. You know, I mean, obviously God needed him. He was meant to be one of his angels, because there's nothing else I can tell myself to make sense of that tragedy. He was just meant to be one of God's angels. Because how does that happen? You know, how do you get unlucky enough to have abusive parents that beat your tiny little body and then think you're finally safe and have it happen again, but this time until you're dead? The law doesn't always work the way it's supposed to, unfortunately, but I believe with my whole heart in this case, it wasn't the law that failed. It was the corrupt people that are working for the good people that are unfortunately, like I said, corrupt, that have failed Shanann and her babies. And we need to do whatever we can to bring this case to light and to make people see that Shanann Watts and her amazing, beautiful children deserve justice. And we need to somehow fight for it in every way that we can, because this is such an injustice. The people that aren't paying the price for wiping away this amazing family, it's so sickening and sad. And I had said I'm gonna try to get together like a little series where I go into I'm going to delve into details of the case and why I feel like I do, and kind of give you guys maybe examples of what I mean and explain it to you a little bit better. The reason I wanted to pop on here tonight was just because I had said I was going to try to get on tonight. Unfortunately, my day ended up not going quite the way it was supposed to go. But I am going to explore specific areas, specific things that should have been done differently, or just plain should have been done at all that weren't. And I'm going to give you guys some examples of how it should have gone, and with my history, what I know, the steps that should have been taken that weren't. And I'm going to kind of delve into each little piece and part, just based on my knowledge. But I also wanted to just thank you guys one more time. When I did my video, it was basically to vent, my first video, because I've been silent for almost 2 years, and it's been eating me alive, because I know something is severely wrong here, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore, and I had to vent. I didn't expect the feedback that I got. I didn't expect it at all, so I'm so thankful to each and every one of you guys for actually telling me that, that I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about, and then you understand my viewpoint, and you agree, and you are completely supportive, and that's amazing, and that just feeds me to want to put out there a little bit more of what I know. So I will be doing that this week. I'll work on that, and I want to do a little bit more research as well. So I will get back on here this week, and we'll dig into a little bit of the evidence and the lack thereof and all of that. But anyway, thank you again. You guys are all amazing. You guys have the ones of you that have reached out to me to say just this most amazing things, and just so sweet and kind, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And I look forward to getting into this case with you all. I think that we can together make something happen, and I'm looking forward to talking with all of you guys and getting into it a little bit, okay? Anyway, I hope that everybody has a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever it is where you're at. I'm really looking forward to doing this with you guys, and I will talk to you again soon. Have a wonderful day, night. Make good choices and take care, and I will talk with you all soon. Thanks so much, you guys. Bye-bye.